Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be your expert guide today as we embark on a truly fascinating, paradigm-shifting journey. We're going to combine quantum physics, cellular biology, human anatomy, and psychology to figure out exactly how to manage prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. We're looking at the human body through an entirely new, multidisciplinary lens. We're going to start all the way down at the subatomic level, examining the actual behavior of electrons, and then zoom all the way out to holistic daily lifestyle choices. It's a completely interconnected ecosystem, and once you understand how all these systems talk to each other, well, it's going to forever change the way you view long-term metabolic health. Okay, let's dive into this. Because, when we think about managing our metabolism, we usually just think about the macros, right? Carbs, insulin, hitting the gym. But the reality is far more profound. Metabolic health doesn't just start with the food on your plate. It actually begins with the behavior of subatomic particles inside your cells operating at distances significantly smaller than a single nanometer. So does your blood sugar actually depend on quantum physics? It absolutely does. Here is the roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be looking at Section 1, the quantum core, Section 2, anatomy of glucose uptake, Section 3, glycemic variability and psychology, Section 4, dietary adjustments, Section 5, the autonomic shield, and finally, Section 6, a unified strategy. Let's start with Section 1, the quantum core of metabolism, because to truly understand cellular energy, and specifically where metabolic dysfunction begins for someone with prediabetes, we first have to look at how electrons actually move. It turns out our bodies are ultimately governed by the mind-bending laws of quantum mechanics. Inside the mitochondrial electron transport chain, which is basically the powerhouse of your cells, electrons have to move incredibly efficiently to process the energy from the food you eat. And they do this using a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. Essentially, electrons are able to tunnel between redox centers in the protein fold, provided the crossover distance between them is kept incredibly tight, typically around 12 angstroms. Now, to put that into perspective, 12 angstroms is incredibly tiny. We're talking about 1/1,000,000th the width of a human hair. If cellular inflammation causes that microscopic distance to widen even slightly, the energy transfer drops off exponentially. Think of it like this. Classical chemistry suggests that to get to the other side of a wall, a particle has to physically climb all the way over it, which takes a massive amount of energy. But quantum tunneling? That's like a ghost simply walking straight through the solid wall. I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, but this ghosting through the barrier is a non-trivial quantum effect that our biology entirely depends on to survive and function. And this brilliantly illustrates just how powerful this phenomenon really is. Thanks to quantum mechanics, enzymes in your body can accelerate metabolic reactions by a factor of up to 10 to the 17th power. Let's just pause on that. To put 10 to the 17th power into perspective, that is roughly the number of seconds that have passed since the very beginning of the universe. It's an unfathomable number. So why does this matter so much for a patient with diabetes? Well, if your cellular ecosystem is inflamed or damaged by chronically high blood sugar, those incredibly precise quantum engines start to sputter. Optimizing your metabolism is, quite literally, about helping your electrons tunnel more efficiently. Section 2, anatomy of glucose uptake. Now let's zoom out from the tiny quantum realm and look at the anatomical level, specifically skeletal muscle. Because your muscles are actually responsible for taking up roughly 80% of the glucose in your blood after you eat a meal. For glucose to actually get out of your bloodstream and successfully enter your muscle tissue, it has to complete 4 highly precise physiological steps. First, it has to be delivered. Insulin acts as a vital key here to stimulate enos, which dilates your blood vessels and augments blood flow. Second, the glucose traverses the extracellular matrix. Third, it gets picked up by specific doorways on the cell called GLUT4 transporters. And finally, fourth, it diffuses into the cell via a cellular diffusion gradient. If any of these 4 steps are blocked or impaired in any way, that's where the foundation of insulin resistance begins. But here is the absolutely amazing part of our anatomical machinery. Insulin isn't the only way to get those GLUT4 transporters to the surface of the cell. Muscle contraction during exercise activates the AMPK pathway, acting completely independently of insulin to pull glucose right into the muscle. On top of that, a moderate level of reactive oxygen species, a process known as oxidative eustress, generated during movement, also directly facilitates glucose uptake. For a diabetic patient, this is an incredible backdoor. Movement literally forces your body to clear glucose, completely bypassing the broken insulin mechanisms. Section 3, glycemic variability and psychology. Let's zoom out even further now, from the muscles all the way up to the brain. We need to look at how fluctuating blood sugar doesn't just damage your peripheral tissues, it physically alters your psychology and your daily mood. When someone with prediabetes or diabetes rides a chronic blood sugar roller coaster, meaning they have high glycemic variability, it wreaks absolute havoc on the central nervous system. Those constant spikes and crashes actually impair the delicate blood-brain barrier. Furthermore, they increase inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha and IL-1 alpha. Think of those as massive chemical alarm bells going off inside your brain. Because of this, erratic blood sugar is now widely recognized in the literature as a severe, independent risk factor for cognitive dysfunction, severe mood swings, and even clinical depression.
So the crucial point is how we actively balance the brain's delicate chemistry to prevent this from happening. Think of glutamate as your brain's excitatory gas pedal. Too much of it, which is incredibly common in modern high-sugar diets, causes neurotoxic anxiety, jitters, and stress. On the flip side, GABA is the calming brake pedal that smooths everything out. Evidence shows that a ketogenic diet can shift the body's primary fuel source to ketones, which biologically enhances the conversion of excess excitatory glutamate into calming, protective GABA. By stabilizing your blood sugar through long-term dietary adjustments, you literally physically stabilize your mood.
Section 4, Dietary Adjustments, Starch, and Fasting. Knowing all of this, let's look at the evidence-based dietary interventions that optimize both these macrobiological systems and those tiny quantum engines we talked about earlier. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the AMPK pathway maps out right in the center of our complex cellular network. When you practice intermittent fasting, say intentionally restricting your food intake for 16 to 18 hours, you intentionally deplete your body's readily available energy stores. This mild stress activates AMPK and sirtuins, which flips a vital metabolic switch in your biology. It triggers autophagy. Think of autophagy as an internal cellular cleanup crew that wanders around dismantling old, misfolded proteins and sputtering mitochondria. It paves the way for fresh, highly efficient ones that can quantum tunnel perfectly. Another massive evidence-based dietary lever is resistant starch. Unlike regular carbs that spike your blood sugar, resistant starch literally escapes digestion in the small intestine. It travels all the way down to your colon where it ferments into short-chain fatty acids. This incredible process physically alters your gut microbiome. And here's the real kicker. It naturally stimulates the production of GLP-1, your body's own anti-diabetic hormone, in a sustained day-long manner. In a world totally obsessed with GLP-1 weight loss drugs, getting your body to produce it naturally through resistant starch is a monumental insight for long-term health. It's way more powerful than just following a simple low-calorie diet. Section 5, the autonomic nervous system shield. Let's shift to our final physiological lever. We've talked deeply about food and movement, but what about the simple physical act of breathing? Let's look at how your nervous system acts as an invisible shield for your metabolic health. Your diaphragm is a major muscle directly connected to the vagus nerve, which acts as the main highway of your parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. This means that how you breathe isn't just about getting oxygen to your lungs. As the research notes, it acts as a mechanical to biochemical transducer. Let's translate that into plain English. The physical stretching of your breathing muscle literally acts as a switch that changes the chemical makeup of your blood. By intentionally slowing your breathing down, say to a rhythm of about 5 to 6 breaths per minute, you vastly increase your heart rate variability and powerfully stimulate that vagus nerve. For a diabetic patient, this is an absolutely crucial practice. It inhibits the HPA axis, which drastically lowers the release of the primary stress hormone cortisol. Since cortisol directly commands the liver to dump glucose right into the bloodstream, triggering massive blood sugar spikes, breathing slowly acts as a literal metabolic shield against stress-induced hyperglycemia. Let's move to Section 6. A unified management strategy, and see how this builds into one comprehensive, deeply interconnected protocol. We've looked at everything from quantum tunneling to the vagus nerve. You see, managing prediabetes or diabetes successfully is never just about pulling one single lever. It requires a unified, holistic strategy. You use fasting to intentionally trigger autophagy and clean up your quantum mitochondrial engines. You use resistant starch to heal the gut microbiome and naturally boost your GLP-1 levels. You can utilize therapeutic ketosis to beautifully balance your brain's GABA and glutamate levels, calming your nervous system. And you use diaphragmatic breathing to actively increase vagal tone and block the stress hormones that spike your blood sugar. Together, these practices work synergistically to heal the human body from the inside out. Your metabolic health is a profoundly interconnected journey that stretches from the microscopic electrons tunneling in your mitochondria all the way up to the very rhythm of your daily breath. Every choice, every bite, and every breath is a tangible opportunity to heal. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. How will you optimize your body's cellular ecosystem today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I deeply encourage you to take these insights and start optimizing your own incredible biological machinery.